So I hope you can see my Blackboard, SAP Modeler for clustering, and so that vendor management.csv. So I've taken the file that we were working on before here. That was what the first SAP AI homework was about. So we had the vendor management case, and and you were supposed to do a visitor stats as the homework. So here, because we don't have the access to the R, is it making sense? Okay. So here since we don't have access to the R, we have to live within the SAP predictive analytics world, and by and large, those models are also available. So I'm going to bring this down maybe. And I am going to start up this. And so till last year, we were able to get practically all the R models to work except the neural one. But this year, I think the program has got more bigger, and so your laptops are not proving good enough. So this is the modeler. So we will be doing quite a few of these. We will be doing the social network analysis. We'll do the recommendation. We'll do the social network, and this is the modeler. And so if you want to create a clustering model, no, this is the C in downloads. So vendor management.csv. So, so this is being recorded, so you can always follow this, So the idea, you first always do analysis, so that will give you the variables. And we want to do cluster with respect to 4, 5, or 6 of these variables. So again, if you can see right bottom, next, I'm pressing. And things I will pull out. So, transporter ID is an arbitrary number. We don't think the order year is relevant. So we have this order value, responsiveness, punctuality, spoilage factor, this one, So I can go to next. And for simplicity's sake, basically you are supposed to try out many numbers and see, which one comes out to be very crisp, in the sense that there is little overlap and each of the population is very distinct. And I could go to next. It says 16% overlap between the population. Some of the population couldn't be given to 3 plus 1. There is always a 1, an extra 1, where the unassigned things land up. And I can see a cluster summary. So these are 1, 2, 3. You can see this is not a nice one. So maybe I should try 4 and 4, 5. So these are my clusters. And there are many statistical reports it produces. Cluster bubble charts, cluster frequencies, and how many is there in each of the cluster. And then maybe, you know, we can go back here, see the cluster profiles. So this is, say, with my variable size, it says, you know, that all population is red and the purple and blue is the cluster. And that's so cluster number 1. So, you know, I might be interested in, say, punctuality as to which ones are best in punctuality. So this is very good, cluster number 1, because I mean, it's much worse than the average ones. The distribution in the general population is mostly towards 4, 5, and this is this. So I might try and see what my class. So here is the most of the population is towards 3, and you know this particular cluster is towards 4 and 5. So the cluster 3 is very good for punctuality. And then, you know, I might be interested in spoilage, responsiveness. And again, cluster 3 is, so the cluster 3 is again doing well, because 4 and 5, the better it is, you know, the number higher the number is, better it is. And then we can see, and now it reverses. The cluster 1 is worse than the general population. Cluster 2 is also worse than the general cluster 2 is better than the general population. So this is the way you analyze the characteristics of each cluster, and then you say, okay, you know, I like the cluster number 4. This is my vendor characteristics that I want, that are reasonably good in punctuality, reasonably good in responsiveness, and are, you know, much not that bad in, say, spoilage, you know. So that is how the clusters will tell you. And then you say, okay, you know, what is the characteristics of this firms in this cluster, you know. So we can then go back and say that, see that they belong mostly to Texas, or maybe they belong to Florida. So all of these can then be used to guide you as to new vendors that you might be looking for. So if you find that in some big way, the Florida vendors are much worse than Texas, you know, because they are mostly in cluster 1, which is the kind of the bad cluster, then you might think that, okay, let's use the Texas people to also deliver my stuff in Florida. So that is the cluster analysis that we can do in SAP Modeler instead of going into the expert analytics, you know. So we will be mostly, I mean, you know, practically we'll be staying all along with the SAP Modeler, because the R systems are not working. So I will now make an exit, and we will just discuss some